Today I'm going to show you 8 popular exercises that I don't recommend for my clients, plus I'm going to give you 8 better alternatives that you could use for your own workouts. Let's get to it. Number 1, burpees. Why? Because fuck burpees. Bench dips are one of those exercises that I actually used to do a lot in the gym when I first started working out. The problem with it is that when you go down, your shoulders round forward excessively. It doesn't feel too good in the shoulders. I prefer doing close grip push-ups. So you get into a push-up position, thumbs lined up directly underneath the armpits, basically gluing your elbows down to your side, keeping them tucked in, pretending that you're in a narrow hallway. You don't want those elbows to flare out and hit the walls beside you. Keep your elbows glued to your sides as you go up and down. Much better alternative from a joint-friendly perspective as opposed to the dips. You've probably seen this in the gym or maybe done it yourself as dumbbell side bends. You basically have a weight in one hand and you're just bending side to side. Now, while you may think it's a good kind of movement for the obliques, it doesn't really feel too good on the lower back, especially if you have pre-existing lower back issues. So to target the obliques effectively, there's a bunch of other variations you can do that don't feel as stressful on the lower back specifically. So one option is that you could simply just take a dumbbell and just hold it standing upright like that. You could even use a barbell to intensify the exercise a little bit on your grip, and you're simply just holding that position, staying upright, not bending side to side, but trying to resist the urge to bend side to side. That's what's called a anti-lateral flexion core exercise. So we're resisting the urge to bend laterally. We're getting an amazing exercise for the obliques, but we're not putting our lower back at risk. You could take it up a notch by doing an offset carry. So you're holding the dumbbell on one side and just walking the length of a turf strip and back to do kind of like an offsetted loading, still anti-lateral flexion, really good for the obliques. You could also do other exercise variations like Copenhagen hip lifts and side plank variations that target the side of your core, working your internal and external obliques, but simply not putting your lower back at risk as the dumbbell side bends do. I was guilty of doing a lot of shrugs when I first started lifting weights as a teenager, grabbing a couple of dumbbells, lifting your shoulders up and down. They're not a bad exercise if you're looking to build your upper traps, but really there are 2 way better alternatives in my opinion if you are looking to dial in on the upper traps a little bit and build up those shoulders. Number 1 is going to be heavy deadlifts. So either doing it from a conventional stance, sumo stance, or with the barbell, doing RDLs. Lifting up heavy ass weight from the floor is, in my opinion, the best lift that you can do to really build those upper traps. Number 2 is going to be heavy farmer carries. So whether you have dumbbells, kettlebells, or actual farmer handles, picking up some heavy weights and going for a walk will light up your upper traps like no tomorrow. 2 way better alternatives in my opinion, as opposed to doing dumbbell shrugs. Barbell overhead presses can be a really good lift for some people, but you have to have the shoulder mobility to be able to get into a good overhead position without compensating and arcing the lower back and putting a lot of pressure on that lower back. So if you have optimal, shoulder health and shoulder range of motion and mobility, and you're able to get into a good overhead position, barbell overhead presses are going to be fine. The problem is that a lot of people don't have that. So rather than doing a strict overhead press, pressing straight overhead with the barbell, you might consider doing more of like a landmine press. And the landmine is on a swivel, so it puts the barbell on an angle. And that angled movement pattern of the barbell going up and down doesn't require you to lift a barbell directly overhead. So it's a lot safer and more joint friendly on the shoulders for most people, but you still get a great effect from a muscle building standpoint for the shoulders and upper body as opposed to doing the barbell overhead press. Tricep kickbacks are one of those exercises I don't really understand why people have them in their programs. You don't really get a good stretch in the triceps and you lose tension through half of the movement. So it doesn't really make sense from a muscle building standpoint if you're trying to build your triceps to even do that exercise. So throw that one away. Replace it with either PJR pullovers where you're having a dumbbell. You're in a cross bench position basically with the shoulders on the bench, feet are going to be on the floor. You're stretching your arms back, getting a full stretch in the triceps and locking out your arms, getting a lot of good tension in the triceps. Or just simply doing tricep extensions on the cable. Rather than holding 1 rope handle, I like using 2 rope handles just so I'm getting a fuller range of motion. I'm getting a good stretch in the triceps. Either one of those alternatives is going to be a way better substitute as opposed to doing tricep kickbacks in my opinion. I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this online, but barbell squats and barbell deadlifts are 2 exercises that I probably wouldn't recommend for the majority of people. Now, I used to do some Olympic lifting. I did some powerlifting for a few years. I love the barbell. I think it's a great tool to build strength, muscle, size, but it's not the only tool to achieve those outcomes. Now, if you're not a power lifter, you don't need to lift with a barbell, right? Powerlifters squat, bench, and deadlift with a barbell in their competition. So of course their training is gonna have to require a barbell to get ready for their meet, right? If you're not getting ready for a powerlifting meet, you don't need to use a barbell. There's other tools that we can use in the gym that aren't necessarily as taxing on the joints, but still offer a lot of bang for your buck from a strength and hypertrophy perspective, right? So as opposed to doing backloaded squats where we got a barbell resting behind the neck and we're squatting up and down, I tend to prefer safety bar squats to a box. The safety bar has handles on the side here where you can hold in front. Your shoulders don't need to stretch far behind because a lot of people don't have the shoulder range of motion to be able to get into an optimal back rack position without putting too much unwanted stress on their shoulders, right? So safety bar is an easier setup for most people. That's one alternative to a barbell back squat that I like. Another alternative to barbell squats that I really enjoy using for my clients is to just forget the squat pattern, just do like a split squat pattern, like a rear foot elevated split squat, holding 2 heavy dumbbells in the hands or in a goblet position, right? All that load bypasses the spine and goes directly to the legs. So safety bar squat to a box and rear foot elevated split squats are 2 alternatives that I personally really like using as opposed to the barbell squats. Now, when it comes to barbell deadlifts, it's tricky for a lot of people to do barbell deadlifts because when you're standing behind the weight, to get into an optimal setup position, it requires a lot of mobility and mobility that a lot of people don't necessarily have, right? So when they go to pick up the weight, they tend to excessively round the back and all that pressure goes to the spine. So one alternative that I like for the barbell deadlifts is the trap bar deadlift. Now with trap bar, rather than standing behind the weight and having to reach forward to pick it up, you're standing inside of the weight with the handles at your sides. It's a way easier setup for most people to get into, but you're still getting the benefit of lifting heavy ass weights from the floor. So trap bar deadlifts is probably my go-to alternative for the barbell deadlift. Just going back to the burpees for a second, that was more of a tongue-in-cheek comment. I've got a sign in the gym that says no burpees. Look, if you like doing burpees, go for it. It doesn't matter to me. But when we think about what a burpee is and we break it down, it's a squat, it's a push-up, and it's a jump. Most people can't do any of those exercises properly on their own. So when you try to wrap them up into one combo movement with the sole intention of just doing them until you're as tired as possible, your form breaks down, you put yourself at risk of injury, which is obviously not a good thing when it comes to working out. So from a strength building perspective, from a muscle building perspective, from a conditioning perspective, there's just an endless list of better alternatives, in my opinion, than doing burpees. For example, just squatting on your own, right? Just doing push-ups, learning how to jump properly. Doing those movements separately is gonna give you way better positive effects as opposed to doing burpees. But again, if you like doing them, go for it. It doesn't matter to me, it's all good. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys soon.